Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute podcast, and I am your host, Supreme Decisions. Today, I want to talk about perception. You've heard me speak about the ideals of storytelling. I actually like to watch comedies. One of my favorite comedians is Dave Chappelle. One of the reasons that Dave Chappelle is a great comedian is because he is a great storyteller. He has the art of the story. The thing that separates most attorneys, litigators from going to court, and the reason why most prosecutions do not win, is because you don't have people that are great storytellers. I've been told that I tell stories a little bit, but not great at it. Hopefully I'll get there soon. But the ideals of it is being able to paint a picture like an artist, to the point to where not only do you become engulfed in the story itself, you become part of it, and you're able to not only see it, you're able to think it. You're able to feel it. It becomes you. Well, on February 2nd, 2022, the Minnesota Police Department executed a no-knock warrant and murdered Amir Locke, 22-year-old gun owner. Now, what happened was Locke was awakened when the police officers hit the door. Made a loud noise. But here's where it starts to get funny. The media couldn't say anything negative about Amir Locke other than the fact that he had a gun. Because Amir Locke has no criminal record. Amir Locke was a pretty good citizen for the most part. But here's where it really gets funny. You don't hear anything about the officer that fired the shot, except the officer put out a statement. And you remember I told you they use stock language. And as we see, most of them hate video. Because oftentimes the stock language does not allow them to be truthful or actually give you an accurate account of the events that went on. This happened in this case that is happening right now. Amir Locke was said by this officer to have been pointing a gun at the officers. The video shows otherwise. The video shows, just like countless videos that we've seen of these police officers shooting first, asking questions later, Locke never pointed his gun at anyone. So this infallible human being, this police officer, who we know nothing about at this point, lied. Now, here's for the police apologists. What if Amir Locke had just complied? He would not have been shot. Watching the tape, there was no order that Amir could have complied with. But there was a lie that was told in 1 second. The actual pause that I have between takes right now is longer than Amir had to not only awaken suddenly from a sleep, from a no-knock warrant, no command to comply with. That's what he was executed for. Now, here's the thing. I always say this because, again, I like to talk to the police apologists. If this police officer believed what he did was correct, if this police officer stated that he was in imminent danger as he wrote on a piece of paper and swore to God was true, why did he lie when he knew it was on video? And the problem is, it doesn't stop there. The story continued with the police chief. It continued with the mayor. They continued to talk about Amir Locke and this shooting. They were looking for means to justify this officer's action. Here's the problem with that. It was an investigation for a homicide. Amir Locke had nothing to do with that investigation or that homicide. In fact, the door that these Minnesota police officers kicked open was the wrong address. Sometimes I pause for dramatic effect. This time I paused because I wanted you to actually see what I see. I'm hoping I can paint this picture for you right now so you can understand what it is that I'm saying. Oftentimes we look at this and we've gone through this thing called clearly established. The problem with clearly established is most of us have no idea what it is. The police definitely don't know anything about it simply because they're not taught that. Because you remember my friend told me that who's a police officer for more than 20 years, we're being punished for doing what we're trained to do, yet he knew very little law. As a law enforcement officer. Why is that? Because they're not trained to do things lawfully. So whenever I say things like, you need to get the warrant application. Because if you look at the probable cause in this, it becomes easy. If you look at the negligence, because, oh yes, another Minnesota officer who was involved in murdering someone, Dante Wright. Kim Powell, or Poole, pulled out her taser. Pulled out her gun thinking it was her taser. Now, here's the thing. I actually love to do this. I actually went through this with a friend of mine a couple days ago. I did a podcast probably about a year ago. And I spoke about the time in which a police officer will draw their gun. That's between year 1 and year 5 and 9+. Matter of fact, I apologize, Kim Porter. Kim actually was in her 9+ category. Because the range I gave for this was the simple fact that 1 through 5, they're trained to be scared. They are trained to fear everyone. After 9, they can no longer deal with the negative day in, day out, and they are more triggered. Hence, why you have a higher suicide rate with police officers. Hence, why you have a higher domestic violence rate with police officers. Because here's the next part about that. If they admit negligence, which happened to Miss Porter, she ended up having to go to prison. The argument for her not to go straight to prison from court was, oh, well, she's old. Remember, they actually used that for the young lady that stated Medgar Evers she had lied on Medgar Evers. Well, she can't go to prison because she's too old. Not because she didn't commit a crime, but because she's too old. The thing was, she was still lying. And I'm talking about Porter and the lady that lied on Medgar Evers. She was still lying. Porter didn't even inform the prosecution or her bail company that she had moved out of state. She was continuing to lie. She was charged with manslaughter for negligence. Now, I read off in a context before of wrongful death. Wrongful death is the negligent act or a willful act caused by a perpetrator. Now let's make no mistake. These police officers are perpetrators. by very definition. Now, any fatality caused by the wrongful acts of another may result in a wrongful death claim. Wrongful death claims are often based upon death arising from negligence. For example, following a motor vehicle accident caused by another driver, a dangerous roadway, or a defective vehicle, or even medical malpractice. Understanding the whole context of it is understanding that is brought by, unfortunately, the family, the immediate family members, or those that are beneficiaries of that person. In a federal court setting, some states have their own form of it. But the reason why I'm bringing this in the context or the light that I am is because even with this police officer, he used stock language to lie about the actual incidents. There was video that followed immediately that came out that was very seldom shown, but the narrative or the perception that they were pushing was the fact that they ran into this house and this young man had a gun. They neglected to say the name of the officer that shot him. They neglected to say the name of the officer who lied in his report. They neglected to even state that they were at the wrong house. Yet, the police chief, the mayor, and others of the like that were talking about and ran on the platforms of being transparent were willing to stand in front of everyone, the citizens of their state, and lie. They broadcast this around the country, a lie, because they were trying to build a perception that everything was okay, when in fact, I spoke about this is also over a year ago, but it wasn't in the context of the Minnesota Police Department. We talked about this with Breonna Taylor, the no-knock warrant for a guy that was already in jail. Then they tried to make Kenneth look like he was the aggressor when in fact he was returning fire and he fired one shot. But if you listen to the news, the perception they were looking to build was that he was firing upon the officers when he fired one shot that hit one officer. My question is, why is the story the thing that they want to gravitate to versus the actual truth? And whenever I speak about things that force them to be truthful, I'm the problem. When I tell you to go look for these things, why? Because they have to have them in order to prosecute you. It's a problem. When I show you steps in order to actually protect yourself from them, that's a problem. When I offer you the ideals and even the actualities of their books, it's a problem. Something's wrong. Why would you say that? Why are you doing this to me? They go straight into the victim mentality. Well, here's the next part of it. I'm going to give you something else because, again, just like I talked about, this context wasn't that I had this dialogue with last year was not even from Minnesota, wasn't from Indiana with Breonna Taylor. It was actually the Chicago Police Department. They just fired a lieutenant that was telling his subjects of subordinates. Remember, I also said you could sue the supervisors. He was telling them when they actually entered into the wrong house on a no-knock warrant over 50 times and was getting excused by Eddie Johnson. The context was the exact same. He had the support of the mayor. All of these stories were being suppressed, and they were even being skewed in the media. Why? Because the lie travels faster than the truth. They want to keep the truth quiet. Whenever I talked about police officers making over $100,000 a year, everybody scoffed at, oh, police officers don't make that much. But yet you forget that I have police officers in my family. Then I show you several police officers that were sued, and it actually displays their salary All of them were above 100,000 a year. Some of them had eclipsed 200,000. But yet, sometimes when I'm talking, it's just noise because the perception. I put up a video that was taken down multiple times off of YouTube that was actually reinforced by Amanda Ruffin, and it was called Propaganda because she was showing you the perception, how it was built, how it was created, how it is currently being enforced, and how it is currently used, and who is currently aimed at. YouTube took that video down not once, but twice. I put it up on Facebook. There's only been 3 views of it. It is on over 25 different platforms. Why is it they don't want the perception to be changed? Because here's the thing. We always hear Officer Kevin Dingle. There are good officers. Yet we had an officer that was actually being restrained, another lieutenant, one who had trained subordinates that were on video. He was getting ready to pepper spray a handcuffed man with 4 other police officers there while being restrained by his own cadet, his own subordinate. He then turned around and choked her. What happened? They're fighting for him to get his job back. In Chicago, they're looking to suppress records of police officers that have any wrongdoing or looking to demolish any wrongdoing after 60 days. These are the things that they don't want you to know. So when you're asking for them, you're the problem. Because when I talked about the Biden's George Floyd reform bill, and unfortunately, in the most context of this, it was looking to reform the Police Reform Act, yet it never asked for retraining. It never asked for smarter officers. The one state that did had it vetoed. California. One of the biggest states that have the most issues, California. So they actually looked to correct the problem. The problem is not only the policing, it's how they are trained to police. Now, I often say this. Nobody has an issue with police officers. They have an issue with bad policing. But we also have an issue with those that are lying to us to our face and expecting us to believe it when we know for a fact you're lying. But then you have those that say, well, regardless, they're wearing a uniform, you got to respect them. My question is, how is respect given to someone who does not give it back? Because you put on that uniform and badge to serve, but you have an unwillingness to be servants. You put on that uniform to be a pillar to protect, yet you don't want to protect those that you swore to protect. Because here's the thing, when you actually put yourself in a state of servitude, you become great. Why? Because it becomes more than about yourself. It becomes about something bigger than you. And that's one of the things that speaks when you talk about legacy. People are doing things that are bigger than them. When you put yourself in a means of servitude, you're looking to help someone else other than yourself. You are sacrificing. That's where the success comes in, because sacrifice comes before success. Now, I'm going to say something too, because many of us are looking for the shortcuts. Even when doing this, even when defending ourselves, we're looking for the shortcuts. And I even did a podcast and I named it after him. Because a lot of people don't even like it. Don't even like the fact that I listen to him. Now, here's the great part about it. I don't have to agree with everything he says. I don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to agree with anything that I say. But there are often jewels that are given out, even by those that you don't like. Because my whole goal every day, just like I spoke before, is Kasen. I need to be better today than I was yesterday. Sometimes being better comes from someone else offering an idea. And one of the things he spoke about was sacrifice and success. Sacrifice comes before success, but everybody wants the quick way. But because they forget how they got here. In order to be born, you had to go through blood, sweat, tears, and pain to be here. I'm going to say that: blood, sweat, tears, and pain to be here. But then it took you 9 months to get here. It took you 6 months to get here. It took you 5 months to get here. I can speak to these terms because I have children that follow those numbers. But it took something for them to get here. And you're trying to take a shortcut. You're trying to go with self-preservation when in fact you are a servant. The context of this is understanding when I say they're using stock language, it's a problem. When I tell you to go get this, it's because they're using stock language and it's a problem. Because always, you look for the easy, that's the easy. You call me so you don't have to be. But here's the thing. There's still going to be a form of sacrifice because they can't just give it to you. You have to be willing to stand there, dig in, bite down on your mouthpiece, and be willing, or as Tupac said, be willing to die for that shit if you have to. Because at any given moment, if we just followed the perception that was given out, if we just listened to the lie that was given out, we wouldn't know that the police went to the wrong house. We wouldn't know that the officer who said he was in fear for his life did not have a gun pointed at him. In fact, no officer had a gun pointed at him. In fact, the officer that saw the gun, it was pointed at the floor. But when I speak about it, I'm the problem, not the person that's not following their own rules. Not the person who put themselves in a form of servitude and is not serving. Understand that. Because even if you go through this, you have to understand that servitude is sacrifice. All the time you put in to become a police officer, that was sacrifice. The problem is most people want to stop sacrificing. They want it easy. We're in the microwave generation. They don't want to go through anything because that's how you separate who is actually there for you and who's not. Because about all the thousands of people I helped prior to, October 25th, 2012, 13 of them ungrateful motherfuckers stood on a stand because they didn't want to sacrifice. All of them went to jail. I went home. I rolled everything to the middle of the table. They were unwilling to believe in the same thing that they were looking at, knowing it was lie. Thomas Sotomayor has, at the beginning of his video, The Belief of the Lie. It's a cool-ass song. And it's talking about being caught in the perception, being caught in the story, not being able to differentiate reality from online life. And here's the greater part about it. Most people have no idea. That is actually called the matrix defense. You're not able to tell the difference between Facebook and the grocery store. You're not able to tell that these cowards have an outlet online because they can't see you face to face. They allow the perception to be their actual life. They allow their lie of who they really are to be life. When in fact, that's not what this is. So I'm going to give you another instance because I actually looked at, as they call it, a veteran Cumberland County Sheriff Lieutenant. Again, a guy that is high ranking, who's a lieutenant. He was off duty. Jeffrey Hash. He killed Jason Walker. Now, here's the crazy part. He wasn't on duty at the time. Lieutenant Jeffrey Hash was not on duty at the time. He called 911 after he murdered. I'm going to say that one. He called 911 after he murdered Jason Walker. His story: a male jumped on my vehicle and broke my window. I just shot him. Yet, a trained person, Jeffrey Hash, didn't know what the words imminent meant. And here's the greater part. The police chief and the mayor, who knew otherwise, even certain stories were reported. There was only one witness. And the witness said exactly what the police officer said verbatim. That's amazing. Because again, I've sat in a room, sat and watched a movie with my significant other, and we sat there and we watched it. And the one thing we did not see is the exact same thing, the exact same way, at the exact same time. Why? Because if you put two people anywhere, they have different perceptions of the world based on their experiences. But even with the lie being told, there was a young lady, because again, this man, Jeffrey Hash, Lieutenant Jeffrey Hash, the one who is sworn to uphold and protect the public. That's what I'm going to do. That's my duty. Didn't render aid after shooting Jason Walker in the back twice. No, there was another young lady who did that. They refused to take this young woman's story because it contradicted what the police officer said. And the police said this preliminary investigation revealed that an adult male ran into traffic and jumped on a moving vehicle. Yet, when the young woman that had rendered aid to Jason, they did not take her story. She went on national TV during a press conference and said, yeah, I saw the entire thing. Yet the perception that was being built was there was only one witness and it wasn't her. Because the police officer nor the witness even stated that this woman was giving aid right beside both of them. She's in a video right beside both of them, but there was only one witness. She gave an exact detail stating, no, he did not jump on the vehicle. He was ran down by the police officer. There was no imminent danger because after he ran him over, he was lifeless, and Lieutenant went and shot him execution style. Yet this police officer is not fired because his statement was, I was in fear for my life from a man that was laying on the ground that had just been run over. So I had to shoot him in the back because he was an imminent threat after being run over laying on the ground. And yes, he has a 3,000-pound truck who ran over a 200-pound man. I'm going to say that one more time because I don't think you heard me for the police apologist. He has a 3,000-pound truck that ran over a man that's 200 pounds. And he was in fear for his life. That's why he shot him in the back, not once, but twice. And then did not murder aid, and then he lied. Why lie if you believe you did the right thing? Why am I now supposed to trust you? Here's the great part about that, because I'm going to get into this. One of the things I'm actually looking to do over the next coming years is It's something that it actually, I believe, I can't remember the young lady's name, but she wanted to start this in California because it's one of the biggest problems in this country. You have police officers doing this stupid shit. And then they're going out, and if they are fired and the police unions get them an opportunity to get their job, they go get a job somewhere else to do the exact same thing. We remember this in Philadelphia. He shot someone in the back. He then goes and swears in Philadelphia. He went to another police department in Philadelphia. 15 minutes after being on the clock, he shoots someone else in the back. He then gets fired. He's getting rehired somewhere. The young man that killed Tamir Rice, he stated that he was in fear for his life for this child. He yelled through a closed window, and before Tamir hit the ground, he hadn't even opened his door. He shot him through a moving car window. He is now employed in a different city. I spoke about the Arizona officers who, the majority of them have been involved in police-involved shootings. And those that have been fired, they go somewhere else. Now, here's the great part about this. Because remember, I also did the podcast. I talked about police character on trial. Putting together or compilating a list of these liars. Because you remember, the prosecution has to turn over the fact that these are lying cops. These are lying officers. Even next week, I'm going to give you a detail for those in Georgia. So if you're in the GA, listen to your boy, because on the expressway, you get a chance to be great. Simply because the 106 class, the 106 class of the Georgia State Patrol, you know what? You got to wait till next week. But here's what we're going to look at is the fact that when we have these liars, every time they are involved in a case, their character comes into play. If you have someone that is a liar offering testimony, guess what happens to that testimony? It gets thrown out. If they are the expert witness against you, guess what? They are no longer a witness against you. And if they are, it becomes malicious prosecution. Y'all don't hear me because, again, the prosecutor gets to cherry pick the cases they want to prosecute. So they're making a conscious choice to choose someone they know is a known liar. Now, this way, whether they go from Florida to Chicago to Maine to Wyoming to Utah, who cares? There's going to be a nationwide list that we're going to look to compile to create the opportunities for us to be great and defend ourselves. Because the police unions are working overtime to make sure, even if they harm their own, because I want you to understand something. Everybody was upset about Derek Chauvin. Oh my God, I can't believe Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd. 8 minutes and 46 seconds on his neck. He lied about what happened, what was said by the EMS personnel, yet he forgets that he had on a video with audio. I'll get into that. But during his trial, most of us missed the fact that the media was focused on Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, Derek Chauvin. We never understood that there was a second high-profile case that no one talked about. 3 Philadelphia officers who beat up one of their own and put him in the hospital. Their defense was because he was there. Not that he had broke the law. Not that he was doing anything illegal. Not that he wasn't anything other than a cop. They beat him because he was there. All 3 officers were exonerated. This week, we're looking at Travis McMichael, Greg McMichael, and their guilty pleas that they're rescinding. And I actually put up a podcast where I talked about we're in week 2 of the other 3 officers with Derek Chauvin in their hate crime. Oh, wait, because Derek Chauvin has already pled guilty to it. Derek Chauvin is old news. So guess what they wanted to do? Because just like when they were trying Derek Chauvin, they were like, yeah, get him away from us because he's guilty. Take the light with you. The perception is it's not happening. We're going to sneak these 3 too. We'll give you one. And this is one of the things I call feeding them to the wolves. Giving you just enough to pacify you. Well, see what we're doing over here? We did that right here. Right here. We took Porter. Yeah, we took right here. Then you forget that the young man who was supposed to serve 10 years for murdering a young man sitting in a car that was doing nothing, that committed no crime. Instead of serving 10 years, he served 3. Say that one more time. Instead of serving 10 years, he served 3. Instead of serving the mandatory maximum or minimum, he served 3. He was supposed to serve 10. He served 3. You're not paying attention because of the perception. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want you upset with that. And the perception allows you to be upset with who they want, when you want, and how they want you to be upset. When you're not paying attention to the program or the propaganda, or in this case, the propaganda, you have an idea to actually think for yourself and actually see what's going on. I'm going to put together another podcast, and it's going to be called, it's going to have something with red pill, because it's going to be about the truth that nobody wants to talk about. It's probably not going to be monetized. It's probably not going to be something that that's going to be readily available as the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute podcast. Probably not going to be there. But it's going to be something that you're going to have an opportunity to not only listen to me just yap about things that are truthful, but it's about those things that go deeper into the context of what it is that allows you to free yourself. These are the things that this channel is for. I am pulling down the propaganda. I am pulling down the perception. I'm the dude from the Wizard of Oz that's showing you what's behind the curtain. I'm the magician that's telling you about the tricks. Because whenever I tell you what they're going to do, and then I tell you how they're doing it, and now I'm telling you how to combat it, now I'm giving you support for that. See how the house is being built? Because a lot of you don't like the way I speak, don't like the way I set this up. Well, you're only giving me a little bit at a time. I told you I'm giving you whole food. I'll give you meals. I don't do that microwave shit. I'm giving you the things that you need. This is the ether. This is the shit that make everything burn slow, because you cannot take down any of this in a day. You're not just going to fight just because you know it. There are a lot of people that know something, but it's different when you're standing there and you're fighting. Michael Bisping said something the other day, because I'm an MMA fan. That's what I do on Saturdays. This is what I do throughout the week. You can go with Chael Sonnen, because I actually put up a video with Chael. But I want you to understand, Michael Bisping said something. He said, this guy went out and he practiced here, he practiced there. I practiced with this guy, and putting it together in that cage is something different. He talked about this guy went all over the world practicing. Allen Iverson, after winning in the finals, had to ask the question, are we talking about practice? Practice? That's what we're talking about right now, practice. The reason he brought that up was because it's different. We're talking about a game. We're talking about the ultimate. This is the ultimate fight. In order to get something, because those who sacrifice comfort for security deserve neither. You've heard me say that before. Why? Because it was said damn near 60, 70 years ago. May have been longer than that. Because understand, whenever I said it, I got it from Winston Churchill. Those who will not sacrifice will sacrifice for comfort, for security, deserve neither. Because if you give up one right, you'll give up all of them. When you talk about negotiation, because I always tell people, pay attention to the boogeyman. When they see you are standing and fighting, they don't want to bother you. But if you negotiate once, you'll negotiate twice. Many of you that are married understand this. If you negotiated once with your spouse, you've negotiated twice. If you conceded one time, you'll concede it twice. And if you've been married for some time, you probably have so many concessions it's not even funny anymore. Because the whole context of this It's understanding the perception. When it's pulled down, it becomes something different. Because when you're fighting, you are a monster. But when they beat the will out of you, when they take it from you, when they take your will to fight, they don't stop coming at you. That's why I tell people, this isn't something that I just talk about. This isn't something that I just read. This is life. Law is life. I get up every day, law. Every time I sit down, law. Everything I'm reading, law. It's about the continuous improvement and the greater understanding. So I can give it to you in a sense to where not only when you put it into practice, when you step into that cage, you are prepared. Not only to win, but to defend. Because anybody go out and they're hungry to get that win. When you become champion, that does not make you one. Because Ric Flair asked 100,000 times, can you walk that aisle one more time? Because it's not winning the belt that makes you a champion. Defending it does. Because as long as you're willing to defend, as long as you're able to defend, the boogeyman's there. You are scary. You are that thing that bumps in the night. You are that monster. Actually, you look at a couple of the videos I made. One of the things I spoke about was they made a monster out of me. That monster still beats. A lot of you see my moniker, and it's the Incredible Hulk. Now, that has so many layers to it. Reason being because I love Lou Ferrigno. He's the original Credible Hulk. I actually loved Lou Ferrigno before he became the Hulk. Many of you just noticed that I just dated myself because Lou Ferrigno was runner-up to Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Olympia. Lou Ferrigno is also the biggest man to ever step foot on the Olympia stage at 6'5", 320 pounds. Whenever I was bodybuilding, that's what I was going for. I wanted to be that sidewalk cracking dude. I wanted to be the Incredible Hulk. I wanted to be Lou Ferrigno. But also in the context of when you go into the Avenger side of it, they asked him, don't you need to put on your uniform? Don't you need to get angry? He said, the key is I'm always angry. The biggest thing was him controlling the Hulk. Once he found a means of controlling the Hulk, it was just who he was. As he called it, the best of both worlds. That's the way I look at myself now. I am the best of both worlds. I don't need to fight, but when I am ready. That is what this is, because again, the wool is not over my eyes. The propaganda has nothing in front of me. The curtain has been drawn. The question is, are you going to continue to listen, move forward, or are you going to continue to be scared and believe and go back into the rabbit hole?